All right, guys. If you needed any more reason to know why you need to vote for Biden so Trump doesn't get reelected, then, well, you're about to get more whether you like it or not. Trump threatens to shut down Pandemic Preparedness Office launched by Biden. That's right, guys. If you liked Pandemic 1, you're definitely going to like Pandemic 2 if Trump gets reelected. Don't you guys think we're about due for another pandemic? I feel like we've gotten a little too soft, you know? We've been enjoying our health and a slightly lesser, growth in infections and deaths for a while now, and seems like Trump has decided that when he gets reelected, we're going to be in for another one. Pandemics never change. Joe Biden's presidential campaign criticized Donald Trump on Tuesday for saying that, if elected, he would close an office in the White House tasked with making sure the country is better prepared for the next pandemic. In an interview with Time published Tuesday, Trump said he would disband the Office of Pandemic Preparedness and Response Policy, the OPPR, which opened last summer after Congress approved a bill in 2022 with bipartisan support to mandate its creation. The office most recently responded to an outbreak of bird flu in dairy farms, coordinating with the Food and Drug Administration to ensure milk remains safe to drink and working with farmers to contain the virus. That's right, guys. It could be a foodborne illness, it could be waterborne illness, whatever it is, Donald Trump's going to make sure there's nobody who is capable of overseeing the ability to catch it before it's too late, respond to it, and prevent it. Yeah. Trump described the office to Time as a way of giving out pork and said an effective pandemic response could be mobilized once a virus emerges.
I think it sounds good politically, but I think it's a very expensive solution to something that doesn't work. You have to move quickly when you see it happening, Trump told Time.
The Biden campaign compared Trump's comments to his haphazard response to the COVID-19 pandemic during his last year in office, when he claimed the virus would disappear
like a miracle.
It would go
away without a vaccine.
And has suggested during a White House press briefing that the virus could be cured by injecting patients with bleach. Pandemic preparedness isn't abstract to the millions of Americans that lost a loved one because of Donald Trump's failed response to COVID-19, said Kevin Munoz, a senior campaign spokesman and the former spokesman for the White House's COVID-19 response during the beginning of the Biden administration. Quote, "We know the impact of Trump's inability to lead all too well, an economy in shambles, schools closed down, and far too many American lives needlessly lost. We cannot afford to go back." Do you guys remember when, centrists and whatnot made fun of lefties because they thought it was going to be the end of the world if Trump got elected? Like, what, do you think millions of people are going to die because because Orange Man's so bad it's going to kill millions of Americans? Like, come on, stop lighting dumpsters on fire. What are you guys freaking out for? Calm down, you're so triggered. What, are you going to move to Canada? Like, this isn't going to affect you. You guys remember that? Turns out he was that bad. After Trump took office in 2017, he disbanded the White House's National Security Council Directorate for Global Health Security and Biodefense. The Obama administration had set up that directorate after the Ebola outbreak in 2014 exposed just how unprepared the U.S. was for a rapidly spreading epidemic coming from overseas. Without that office in place, Trump's White House found itself scrambling to coordinate a response after the first signs emerged that the COVID-19 virus was spreading in China. Biden restored that directorate with his first executive order. Yeah, that was literally Biden day one, by the way. Trump promises we will have another COVID if he gets reelected. That's nice. In late 2022, Congress, seeking to add more resources to prepare for future pandemics, passed the Prevent Pandemics Act, formally establishing the Office of Pandemic Preparedness and Response Policy. The office is currently run by retired Major General Paul Fredericks. The Biden White House has requested $6.2 million to fund the office in fiscal year 2025. The office keeps Americans ready for biological threats and pathogens, says Dr. Raj Punjabi, who previously served as Biden's top NSC official for pandemic preparations. Shutting down the OPPR would leave Americans, as it did in 2020, deeply unprepared to respond to a pandemic and run the risk of leading to the same kind of chaotic response that we all saw with bodies piling up in trucks that had to be converted into morgues in New York City, and ultimately to a loss of lives that are preventable and avoidable, he says. Basically, do you want to see, like, mass graves and mass, like, bodies piled up on trucks like that one scene in The Walking Dead? Do you want to know what, like, COVID reminded me of, truly? Like, it was something that I saw when I was a kid in The Walking Dead that I never thought I'd see in real life, really. You know, like, in America. Walking Dead outside hospital. Who remembers this scene? Like, genuinely. COVID and, like, what was happening in the hospitals and outside of them reminded me of this scene in the first episode of The Walking Dead. Am I the only one who immediately thought of this when they saw it? And was, like, surprised to, like, see this is actually happening in real life in America? It's scary shit. It's really scary shit. Trump also claimed in his interview with Time that previous administrations had not prepared better for a pandemic than he did. That's right, he prepared the best of any administration or president ever, if you ask him.
I'm not blaming the past administrations at all, because again, nobody saw it coming, Trump said. But the cupboards were bare. We had no gowns, we had no masks, we had no goggles, and we had no medicines. We had no ventilators.
It's true that when Trump came into office, the U.S. Strategic National Stockpile, an integrated collection of secret federally controlled warehouses packed with medical and protective equipment, was short on supplies. That's because President Barack Obama deployed resources from the stockpile for public health emergencies, such as the swine flu and the Ebola outbreak. When Obama tried to refill the stockpile, Tea Party Republicans blocked the new funding. In his first 3 years as president, Trump never attempted to replenish the equipment. That proved costly once the pandemic struck. By April of 2020, the U.S. government had already distributed 90% of its supplies. That's right. Obama had distributed all those stockpiles of supplies that were meant to be for if a globe-ending pandemic came for America on like Ebola and swine flu, and potentially prevented a deadly pandemic from wiping out America and the world, for all we know. But when he tried to get those stockpiles restocked, refunded, like get the funds back, the Republicans blocked it. And then when Trump was in office, he didn't do anything to try to get that restocked. And so when COVID came a-running, there was nothing that could be done to respond in time. You know what I mean? Lordy. Do we have what Trump said on video? I'm curious. Doesn't seem so. Although we do have an interesting looking video here, I don't mind. Biden leads Trump among likely voters in new 2024 polling. Oh, holy shit, guys. Wait. Is Trump being this bad and Biden being this based actually having an effect? My God. The monkey is less suicidal now, after learning the politics of the average American voter. Biden is now leading.
Let's get to our top story this morning. Two new polls find President Joe Biden narrowly leading Donald Trump in November's general election race. In the first, from ABC News and Ipsos, Biden is up 4 points, 49 to 45% among likely voters nationwide. In the second, from NPR, PBS, and Marist College, Biden holds a 5-point lead, 52 to 47% among registered voters who say they definitely plan to vote in November. That is still within.
I genuinely don't see this gap shrinking, to be honest with you. I only see it growing in favor of Biden. Like, right now is the fever pitch of people being pissed at Biden about, like, the most valid thing to be pissed at Biden for. That is only going to fizzle off because, as you know, like, there are a fair amount of people like that are interested in Gaza and Palestine and Israel right now. that won't be in 6 months because they have short attention spans, right? And those people are going to be far more motivated by more recent developments. And so I feel that there are no people who are going to have the straw break the camel's back and say, I'm not voting for Biden because he did this thing, that haven't already made that decision. Like expected, I think we're going to see a surprisingly wide gap in expected polling between Biden and Trump in favor of Biden. I think it's going to grow from here, potentially.
And the margin of error, what do you make at this point? It's kind of hard to take any poll that seriously, but what is it telling you in terms of the state of the race?
Yeah.
And also the fact that it's tight, given the options.
Well, I mean, we're so many months out. So these polls in May just don't make a huge difference. But I will tell you, as a candidate myself,
we're in the election year. I'm going to be completely honest. Who the fuck are you? We're in the election year. I'm going to be completely honest. I think that every bit of polling that comes out in the election year could be the start of the trend that determines the election. And we should be totally open to that possibility as possibly even the more likely possibility, especially in such a polarized election. It seems like we're going to know the winner before, like in our gut, we're going to know who wins before election night. Do you get that vibe? Did you get the feeling like I did in your gut that Biden would win the 2020 election? Because I had the gut feeling Biden was going to win. That obviously was true. And I spent the entire night and months leading up to the election saying Biden's going to win. And even when Biden wasn't in the lead, I was saying Biden's going to win, I don't know. I have that gut feeling again that Biden's going to win. What can I say? It's making me optimistic.
When I was a candidate myself, I would take a poll from time to time. You just want to see, you want to test the temperature. You want to, and again, as I've always said, you want to look at trends. We saw a couple months ago, Joe Biden far behind in a lot of polls. These show something quite different, that he's now moving ahead of Donald Trump again among likely voters. Polls of adults, even polls of registered voters, this far out. You might as well be watching Housewives of Beverly Hills, which I hear is really heated up quickly this season.
I have no idea what that. I've never watched an episode of a reality TV show, guys. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I never understand I don't know, like, what Jersey Shore is like or anything. Like, I hear they're bad, but I never really watched reality shows, so I don't actually know.
But something as you dig into these polls, I think makes this election actually unique, at least in America. But I think it's the way we're going. Ed Luce, I want to go to you really quickly. The Financial Times, I think a couple months ago, talked about how the approval ratings of candidates, presidential candidates, incumbents, just collapsed. And so if you're trying to predict how an election's going to turn out, don't look at that, because you'll have as much luck as they did in France when they were seeing Macron in the low 30s and then ending up winning. He got 57, 58% of the vote. We see that here, especially in the ABC poll, where Joe Biden's approval ratings are as low as they've been.
I really think approval ratings might be the most not mattering statistic in all of politics. Like, genuinely, you cannot judge a president's performance based on approval ratings. The American people are just too politically illiterate. How many Americans, percentage-wise, do you think have ever gone to the whitehouse.gov website to read a policy that the current administration is passing, Republican or Democrat? What we did earlier, earlier in the stream, where we were just reading the whitehouse.gov page detailing the policy that was passing, how many Americans, percentage-wise, do you think have ever done that? You think 30 to 40%? That's fucking high, Lefty Jenna. That's a lot to ask. You have a lot of faith in American voters and I genuinely don't think most Americans know that the White House website is a place you can go to get a solid, like, up-to-date tracker of what is happening in government and what policies are passing and what, like, the currently sitting candidate is up to and why they're doing their things. And if you have political literacy and you read, like, what they're doing and why they're doing it, you can pretty easily parse, like, whether or not it's a good thing and being done for good reasons, right? I don't think it's over 5%. I genuinely think it's 5% or less. I don't think 10% or more of Americans have ever in their lives gone out of their way to personally research policies of a politician. I think they hear about them and they go off of vibes more often than not. And right now, Biden just doesn't have the vibes. And so people don't like him. Doesn't matter how good of a job he's doing. I constantly think of that one tweet I read where it was that one guy who said, I don't care if Biden eliminated all of my student debt. He did, by the way, for that guy. He literally saved me $800 a month, and I'm still never going to vote for him. Who remembers that lefty tweet that I featured a couple times? It literally lives rent-free in my head. Ugh.
Issues, Donald Trump doing better than the president in many areas. But then you start asking about who has better character, who's a better person, who understands people like you, and those sort of questions. And Joe Biden wins. And some of those he wins by a great deal. And so those approval ratings, again, just as the Financial Times had reported several months ago, low approval ratings, and yet he still prevails, especially against a candidate like Donald Trump. Is that just where we are now because of social media and everything else? You're just going to have presidential incumbents with low approval ratings that may...
I like the way he words it. Is that just how things are now? Yeah, I think so. I honestly think so, with the internet especially. Like, everything's about hate and negativity. That's what gets the most clicks. It's the most monetarily incentivized. And so when you go online to get your information, you're going to see nothing but hate and criticism and shit talking. You'll never see the good because it's never... You can look at my own views on videos that are, like, covering a good thing Biden did that people should be celebrating and flocking to be happy about, and the videos criticizing Biden. One of those two types of videos gets more views, right? And the fact is, hate gets more views and it makes more money. So people make more hate content because they want to make more money. And it means that people get an unbalanced diet of constant negativity about who's in power, regardless of how accurately spread the negativity is compared to the deserved positivity. That's also why drama channels thrive very easily. Shock content and hate. Yeah, hate and shock content are, drama content is really a perfect example of that, right? Negativity will always make more money than positivity.
They end up like Macron winning comfortably.
Yeah, I think that's well put, Joe. I mean, the governments all around the democratic world have low approval ratings. Relative to most of the rest of the West, other democracies, America is the fastest growing economy, is doing far better, in fact, than countries across the Atlantic. And yet Biden's ratings are as low as they are there. So there is a general just anti-incumbency feeling across the democratic world.
Everyone's getting more populist. They just hate whoever's in power. It doesn't matter who it is or what they're doing. It's just they hate who's in power. Xander Hall, you are correct. About 5% or less actually read policy on whitehouse.gov. Is there data behind that? That's crazy. Well, thank you for confirming, Delancer. I guess my guess was correct. 5% or less of Americans have ever read a policy on whitehouse.gov.
Economy doesn't seem to make that much difference, but we're not really at the choice stage where most voters are focusing like we do obsessionally here in the Beltway. And I think, therefore, once we do get those polls, I've always had, after Labor Day, I've always had the hunch that this is going to be a referendum on Trump, not on Biden.
Right.
Because Trump will make it a referendum on Trump. He just can't help himself. So you might think I'm being a bit Panglossian, but I think ultimately Biden's got the edge here. I hope I'm not going to live to regret those words.
I hope not either. I fucking hope this means that Biden has the edge. I think it does. I think it really does. I mean, the hate for Trump, I don't feel like Trump could have many more supporters this year than he does 2020 or 2016, right? Like 2016, Trump felt like he had the maximum amount of supporters, right? That was the fever pitch, was 2015 and 2016 of his support base. And it feels like since then, there's been an explosion in Trump, regret people. How many people do you see outright say they regret voting for Biden, as opposed to people who have said they regret voting for Trump? The fact that Trump has lost supporters and Biden has tangibly lost far less, or the Democrats have lost far less in comparison, I think that's a big deal. Trump supporters die off from age. Many of them dropped out because they found out how bad Trump truly is. I think Trump is slowly wavering, as are the Republicans, and Biden is growing in an invisible way. Because nobody will ever approve of who's in power now, but that's going to change a lot when it comes to election time, and it's time to vote. And like every woman in your life is telling you need to vote because abortion is on the line in this election, that kind of thing, right? I think it's going to have an impact. I think it could be good for Biden. But we'll all have to see. We're all going to have to see. If you agree or disagree with what I had to say here, please comment down below. I really enjoy reading your comments and hearing what you have to say. Not to mention it boosts my channel in the algorithm, so I really do appreciate the support. And of course, if you also want to boost the channel, don't forget to drop a like or a thumbs up. Every single one boosts my channel in the algorithm like a cattle prod on YouTube to push my content out to more people, and it really does help. So I appreciate it to all of you who do that. And of course, don't forget to sub and turn on the bell icon so YouTube tells you when I go live or upload or anything like that. And make sure to follow my social medias down below if you want to see me on other platforms too. And don't forget, if you want to support me financially directly, which I really appreciate as well, as I am a grassroots funded content creator, you guys are the people that are keeping my lights on and food in my belly and all that good stuff. If you can afford it and you want to, consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buying merch to the Streamlabs link down below. The merch is super cheap. I don't make any profit on it, so if you want to get some merch, it's literally just the production and shipping costs, and you guys can have your own Xander Hall merch. And of course, don't forget to join my fan Discord. It's totally free. It is the main hub of my fan base. We do watch parties, call-in streams, and game events in there. And I also announce all my uploads and streams there. So if you have notifications turned on, you'll never miss anything, even with YouTube fuckery. And yeah, with all that said, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.